All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I want to kind of title my podcast today is, are you not aware that you're not self-aware? I know I come up with these crazy titles. Not positive if I'm going to stick with exactly that title, but I do like it. And I thought about it yesterday because what I'm seeing more than ever with people is them not being self-aware. And when I say that, I mean obviously of their feelings, the way they react, how they behave. And that goes for me as well. I had a problem with this, I think, for a majority of my life, not truly being aware of how I behave publicly, even by myself, anger, stress, all these different things. And I don't know why we weren't taught how to have more self-awareness. I think people want to kind of take control of our minds to a certain degree. And I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean, it's obvious. It really starts off with our parents trying to program us to be, I'm not saying miniature versions of them, but programming us to have a lot of the same beliefs and same values, which some of those, if you have certain parents, can be a great thing. I think a lot of times getting great parents is like winning the lottery. I really do. But I also think a lot of children end up not having always great parents. And some are very manipulative. They manipulate children. They can lie to children. They could be deceitful. They could do many different things to children. Obviously, we know that. And a lot of them are not good. So what I'm trying to really get to here is, if you're a parent or someone, I think what we really should start teaching our children, and I don't care what age they are, or even our friends or anybody, or at least discussing things about self-awareness. And why do we really act the way we act? Especially as we get older, we seem to take on these bad habits that we can't break out of. And I go through this thing regarding what I believed on how to break certain habits, because it worked for me. But I realized a lot of times most of what works for me doesn't work for a lot of other people. I don't know why. And I'm sure there's tons of other people that have all their different ways of doing things. Obviously, that doesn't work for me. My thing really is about nothing really being really excess, like too much of anything. I don't have the personality where I have to have a lot of something. If I like to have a Coke, I can have a Coke once in a while. I do like coffee later in my life more, and I like working out. But for the most part, and maybe Italian food I can eat, but as I'm getting older, I can kind of lean off it. I'm definitely open-minded to try all different foods. There's no question. But I know there's certain foods I just don't want. But sometimes even regarding that, self-awareness, I could see myself not really cooperating with what others want to experiment with or try. And I think what I realized more and more as I got older about my self-awareness was a lot of my life is based on my moods. Let me get some water here. And I don't think a lot of people want to acknowledge their mood a lot of times dictates their life or controls every aspect of it. You wake up in the morning, for instance, talk about self-awareness, and we're kind of usually stuck at a routine. When you wake up, if you're older, how do you feel? Even if you're younger, do you feel like you want to take on the world? Did you oversleep? Did you not get enough sleep? Is something injured where you're waking up in pain? But just say, for instance, you go downstairs, you want to eat breakfast, somebody didn't, do the dishes, someone didn't throw the garbage out, or you didn't have enough orange juice, or you're out of coffee. Is that going to start spiraling kind of a mood where you're pissy and aggravated, right? And then that's going to kind of lead into you going to work or going to wherever you're going to interact with other people. Now you're kind of aggravated. Or did you wake up in the morning and you're feeling good? You're kind of a morning person. You go down, everything's ready. Your coffee goes perfectly timed. Look at some emails. Everything looks good. Take a shower. Get ready for work. Everything's organized. There's really no traffic or whatever the case. And things are moving smoothly for you, right? That day. Back to the moods. So, moods, I think, incorporated with stress, really, again, dictate, I think, what our day is really going to be an outcome. And there's all this different stress, I think, back to self-awareness, is we're carrying on our back. No one can see it. It could be a mortgage payment too high. It could be a car payment too high. It could be a certain way you feel. You're not letting anyone else know. You may be overweight, you're embarrassed, or you can't lose weight and you're upset about it. It could be a million things. I'm not going to get into everything. I'm just describing some things. It may be financial situations, stress. And I think, again, carrying a lot of things that are really stressing you out, really dictates, again, your self-awareness. Because a lot of times when we have those stresses or all these aggravations, it almost starts to turn us into something, I think, that we don't even acknowledge or we don't want to be. I think over the years I realized that too. Even the more money I made, the more stress it brought me. And I know more money, more problems, all that bullshit, which whatever is whatever. And my mother talks about it all the time, put that money away or do this with your money. But don't get over your head. And you know what? She was absolutely right regarding that. And I think a lot of us just keep putting ourselves in a bad position. And I don't know why we do that. And I see so many people do that. And I'm like, aren't they, I'm older now. I'm more self-aware to say, wow, man, I don't think, you can do whatever you want to do. But I think that's just going to be more stress for you. Or if you do this with your kids or try to do this or that, or even go on an expensive vacation. It could be even something small. Or it could be something big. I'm really, a lot of times, looking at parents or looking at my friends or talking with others going, my God, I don't want to tell them this, but do they not see kind of... And I think a lot of times we think in the future things are always going to get better, which I do too. Like, it'll always work itself out. Like, it may be tight now, but you know what? Maybe this is going to pan out for me and I'll have extra money here. If this works out, I'll have more time here. If this works out, it's always kind of that bullshit. But usually it very seldom works out that way, I believe. Because I think we're usually, as usual, stuck in a rut. We're in these positions of making bad decisions over and over and over again. And I don't want to rip on anybody. But again, I don't necessarily think our parents always did that to us. Somewhere down the line, I don't know where, we started taking on, I think, how would I say this? If we don't have certain things at a certain age maybe, or we don't prove our worth at a certain time, then we start to feel, I don't want to say unworthy, but I do want to kind of mention like kind of keeping up with the Jones type lifestyle, that I think it's almost not shame or embarrassment, but we do have a thing like, oh my God, my brother at 25, he's already got his own house. Oh my God, my cousin, he's got a baby already, and they got a second one on the way. I'm not even married. I think, and I'm not going to say it's jealousy either, but I do think there is a form of jealousy. And a lot of people, especially with siblings, have this issue. And they're not aware of it. They're really not. They don't have enough self-awareness to say, you know what? I kind of am jealous of my brother. I'm jealous of my sister. I'm jealous of the relationship maybe this one has with my parents, my father or mother, or I'm jealous my two brothers get along better than, I get along with those two, or whatever the case may be. I think we have to figure a lot of those small things out. And I'm just using that for an example. It could even be at work, I'm saying. You may be like, well, you know what, I'm not a part of that clique. I'm miserable because that clique seems to prosper more. It's better to be in that clique. You get a lot more things. Whatever the case may be, I'm just using these as examples. I think all these little small things, we have to be self-aware to say, you know what, I got to get over that and figure out, do I really want to be in the position that that's kind of aggravating me, or that I'm kind of jealous over, that I'm aggravated over? Because I think a lot of times what we want or we see, we always think is going to be better, and it's really not. Also, what makes us think that that's going to be better? Because as you know, a lot of times you think things are going to be better. They're not even close once you get in it. Right? Like, I get if you buy a magnificent home, right? A lot of people go from a regular home, then you go into something magnificent. Say I live in Florida, and it's got a pool, and you got a TV, like a movie room, hypothetically, and you're on a lake, and it's a huge change, and I get that. But a lot of people I see sometimes go into something, buying a home, that's actually not always much better than where they're at. Maybe they do it for schools and things like that for their children, and I understand that. But a lot of times somebody will just kind of do something than just kind of do it. Maybe it'll be a bigger home, which is understandable. But is that bigger home on a financial level really worth it? Or is it going to put more stress? It is like really thinking about it and thinking it through. And I think when we're younger, especially when we first get married and things, we want to have all these things. A lot of people still, I think, want to have that big wedding. I think they want to, have that huge honeymoon or expensive honeymoon. They want to very quickly get a home, a lot of them. They want to get, a family rocking and rolling, which God bless you. Go do it. I did it, I think. But I think if you talk to a lot of people, I think I can't say everybody, I think most people tell you, take your time. Especially if you met somebody in their 40s and 50s, don't rush anything. Because I do believe, from a self-awareness point, a lot of couples put themselves under a lot of stress very quickly. And when things don't start flowing the way they're supposed to flow in their mind, there's problems. It may not even be a problem the first few years, but 5 years, maybe there's a problem, 10 years. Because it never, I believe, ever seems to be enough a lot of times in a relationship. Because things are always constantly popping up. But if you get married, each move you make, or in a relationship, I should just say, each move you make is changing. You're both evolving. And then each child, say for instance, you have, your relationship with your wife or husband immediately changes. Not always for the better. It just changes. Sometimes it's way for the better. Sometimes it's not what you thought it was. It could be very aggravating. Before you know it, you may have a second child. And you're kind of pretending this is what you want. And it's not exactly the way you thought it was. And a lot of things can come into play. Children could be sick. You could fall on hard times financially. Or things can excel and be great too. I'm not trying to say it's all bad by any means. But it's not always going to be all good. And I realize too with children, especially a lot of times the more kids you have, I think a lot of people think, the bigger the family, the better. I think, again, that's a lot of stress. Be very aware and be honest with yourself when having children. I was honest with myself to say after 2, I'm calling it quits for me. I really, at that point in time, did not want any more children. Didn't even want to think about more children. I did go through some things with my daughter that probably most people don't go through, her having a liver transplant and that. Regardless of that or not, I only wanted 2 children because of my belief system. I thought I had a wife and we had 2 kids. We both could give them the attention I thought they needed. When you get into 3, 4, 5 kids, that was just something. I didn't have enough energy, and I had enough self-awareness to say I'm kind of selfish too, and I still want to work out. I want time to do that. I still want to make films at that point in time. I wanted time to do things for myself. And my ex-wife, I want her to be able to do her thing too. A lot of times, more children, even if you have wealth, it spreads you thin, man. It's more and more. It's more and more energy. It takes a lot. Now, that was just the way I wanted to raise. I wanted to be a father that was around my kids, spent a lot of time. I wasn't the guy who was going to hire a nanny and say, all right, everybody, kind of hang out with a nanny, and I'm going to go do whatever I got to do, which I'm not saying that's bad at all, because a lot of men have careers in companies, and God bless them. And as long as they are self-aware and everybody understands that's the way it is, that's the way it is. But I think going back, a lot of people, when it comes to being in a family, or I don't care if it's going to get a certain type of career, they're not really aware of their actions or their behavior going after certain things, or even when they're in those things. It's kind of like we're all on a routine, I think, for the most part. We keep kind of doing the same things over and over and over again. I was at the point where on one side of my family, I was the youngest. And on the other side of my family, I was the oldest. So it was a very unique position to be in. Both sides of my family were very, very large. And it's interesting now that I'm going on 50 that I look at both sides. And if you look at both sides, in some areas they shifted entirely financially. Some that weren't that successful, extremely successful. Some that were successful, very successful, became unsuccessful. And I could sit back and almost say, I think the ones that became exceptionally wealthy from nothing were very self-aware of every move they were making. From the way they were, and not all of them I'm saying personal relationships went their way. I'm just saying from a financial level, you can see the way, if they made a bad move, how they kind of covered their ass. and the moves they made when things like even the economy's shifting shitty, they're making it really good for, like they made it work for them. They were very self-aware of every aspect going on, not only in their life, but kind of what's going on in the country. And then I think the people that were that had some wealth or a lot of wealth that kind of lost everything, they were caught in a rut. And I think they, for one, thought everything they'd keep doing would make them successful because they weren't self-aware to say, wait a minute, this is going to eventually weed out. This is eventually, not going to always be in style, hypothetically, or not always going to make money. Somebody else may come in and take this from me. They didn't invest their money in different things, only their own business. I talk about that with a lot of my friends, too, where I went through this working with my father that some of my buddies, they trade downtown Chicago at the Board of Trade and things. So they're basically out there screaming, yelling numbers at things. And a lot of them started at a young age, making a lot of money in the 80s and 90s. And when they were kicking ass, and they started to get weeded out, or things weren't making as much money. And I used to tell my friends, and I had a lot of them there and at the Merc as well, I said, guys, when things are going good, I'm going to tell you, that's when you kind of want to start taking your money, obviously, and funneling it in different areas. Or maybe even thinking about, opening something else, another business, have somebody else manage it, just so you have something else to back up yourself, because you may not make this money all the time. You may not. Most of them didn't do that. Most of them were like, hell no, I'm making enough money here. Why would I do that? Because I kept saying, that's when you do that. But as time went on, they started to not make as much money, making less and less. Again, not self-aware. Please make a move. Didn't do it. Before you know it, now they're plummeting. Now they're in a position where they're saying, I can't make a move now. I have no money. Or I'm only making this amount of money. Now I can't, because now they're on a panic. Now they're on a backpedal type situation. And I get that. But I tell people, when things are going good, that's when you start pivoting. You have to find other outlets, because it may not always be good forever. Again, it may be good forever for you for the rest of your life, and you may excel. But as you know, most things I think in life kind of go through different stages. I don't care if it's the stock market, if it's real estate, certain types of businesses. Things are constantly going to be changing. You have to be aware of these type of things. Even politically, I think a lot of people, and I'm not in politics, I just look at it from a distance, thinking their party is always going to be this way. Again, be very aware things are shifting constantly, especially with like social media. Different people, younger people coming into play, changing the dynamics of everything. Good, maybe good, right? Maybe to you bad. I don't know. But again, be aware of those things. Don't just react to those things or attack those things. And I think with religion as well, it's evolving. No matter what anybody says, because if you went back 50 years ago, and my mother ended up 45 years ago getting a divorce, she was literally the only one getting a divorce. And I mean, that was a hard thing on her. And I think she looked at it as a failure, which it wasn't a failure. But no one was getting a divorce. I had so many aunts and uncles that, there may have been one or two more, but I'm talking out of literally, I don't know how many couples, but a lot. So that wasn't even accepted back then. Nothing was really accepted if you go back that is now evolved to being kind of accepted. In religion, there's all these different things that are they're almost bending the rules constantly, because more and more people, you have to evolve. It would be as, if you go back even, I heard a thing like if you went back 20 years and said, hey, for instance, Uber, you're going to get in a stranger's car, you're going to have a phone, actually first, you're going to hit something, a stranger's going to come and pick you up and then take you where you want to go. And they'd be like, you're crazy, I'm never getting in a car with a stranger, I would never let my daughters, my wife. Well, what we didn't realize was basically a cab was a stranger as well, if you think about it. Even though they're licensed, but you're still getting in a car with a stranger, right? When you think about it from that perspective. But look now, everyone's doing it, right? You would have never. That would almost have been against the law to have a stranger pick you up in a car. It's crazy, right? It's almost like hitchhiking to a certain degree. I mean, I know it's more regulated because you're on Uber or Lyft or whatever, but if you think about how that's evolved and how we've become more self-aware that it's more about time, I think when you look at your life, I think what you really got to look at, and I've been watching all these TED Talks, is be aware that really, and you hear it all the time, that your time is the one thing you really need to learn how to be aware of and not pissing all your time away. Because that's going to be your most valued commodity besides maybe money. I get money's money. You need money as you get older to survive. There's no question about that. But when you look back, what did you do with those thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands upon thousands of hours you had in your life? What you're going to probably, like a lot of people, look back and go, wow, why didn't I see that? It's always a hindsight thing. Every time I talk to somebody older, it's like, if I knew what I knew now, or that, you probably knew a lot more than you knew. You just didn't want to make a change. You really just got stuck in acting a certain way or doing something that you became comfortable with. You were kind of lazy, right? A lot of things, you see things coming a lot of times. And when you're doing things a lot of times too, even if you do have that moment like, hey, wait a minute, this house, I know I always wanted a bigger house. But, now that I think about it, do I really need a bigger house? Do I really need to spend another $200,000 or make my mortgage another $1,000 or $1,500 because of an extra 2 bedrooms, or because I want a bigger piece of land right now? And if that's your dream, it's your dream. I don't want to dismiss that. But if you really do sit back, and I think about this too with me, I used to always have all these expensive cars. If I just wish I had the money from just a couple of them, I would invest in business. Because you look at it and say, why am I buying this machine, right, and putting all this money down, then making this huge monthly payment? Not only that, it's depreciating in the first 2 years, probably 40%. A lot more gas. Insurance is high. Is it because it's an identity thing? Most likely. I'm not some sports guy, like I'm obsessed with cars and all this shit. It was just, and then I got to get one for, obviously, my wife as well. And then I got to get another one because then when company comes to town, I like to have a car for them. Or if I'm getting a truck, I got to spend, instead of just getting a truck for nowadays 30 grand or 40, I got to get the one for 85. Whatever the case may be, think about what you're doing, man. Really. And I am really a true, if anybody could explain those type of things, it's me. I believe is just not being self-aware, and also my attitude. I did a film, I talked about this before on my podcast. It was called Sore Losers. It's about the underground world of gambling in Chicago. I started shooting it in 1999, and I wasn't supposed to really be in the film. I just wanted to direct and produce it. One of my friends, who I wrote one of the leads to play, became extremely religious, and he left. And so I ended up taking that position, which really exhausted me because I was just taking on too much. But when I had to edit the film, and I spent a year editing the film, 6 months to almost a year. First, I kind of I edited it by myself just to get all the numbers down and review thousands of hours of footage I shot to weed it down, and then I went and edited it. I can't even say it today. Anyways, I went and edited the film with a professional editor, and I was shocked at my behavior, because a lot of my behavior on that screen was exactly kind of who I was. I wasn't even acting. I kind of wrote the lead role based on myself. But to see my behavior, and I tell people this all the time, even go back on your social media, because that's a really good indicator of kind of your life. And a lot of us have had Facebook the last 8 to 10 years. Look at a lot of things you did, and then look at your life now. Are you prospering? Are you heading in the direction you kind of want to go? Were you doing things when you were younger, which is fine? I think a lot of people, at least my generation, went through a Facebook phase where a lot of us, I got a divorce right before Facebook. It was more MySpace. Let me get some water here. But I would say I have a lot of friends, family members that have gotten a divorce over the last 10 years. I'm not blaming Facebook either, if that's what you're thinking. I'm not. But if you go back and look, a lot of people, how did you behave before you were getting divorced? How did you behave while you were getting divorced? How would you behave after you got a divorce? How are you behaving now? It's a really unbelievable indicator of where your life is going, I will say. And it's almost like a massive photo book, if that's what you want to call it, of your life of the last 10 years. Some people, I think, have been on Facebook even longer. But if you've gone 10 years and if you started off having a wonderful life and ended up bad, what was the shift there? You can almost look at your life. It'll tell you even in memory sometimes, like this happened, that. Oh, I was there, I went there, that was wonderful. Where did it start to pivot and go wrong? Was I not self-aware? What was I doing? Was it my job? Did I move to another state for someone? I got a divorce, or, whatever the case may be. I don't know what it is, good or bad, but it's a very good indicator of your life, which I thought was incredible. just from a mindset that I've done that in the past, because I'm posting a lot of YouTube videos. So I grab photos from my past of different places I go to sometimes, and I use them in those photos. But I never did that before. I never really went back too much into the history of Facebook, just using that for an example. But when I did, I was like, oh my God, I remember when after my divorce, what situation I was in financially, where I was living, where I spent my, say, 40th birthday, where I was for my daughters when they were this age on Facebook. Where were they? Oh, my daughters don't like social media, but, I even look at it and say, oh my God, I remember my daughter's 16th birthday party, who I was with, what I was doing that week. All those things are really interesting. And I think they will help people become more self-aware if you kind of look back at your past. Now, if your past depresses you, why does it depress you, right? A lot of people, I do think, when they look back in their past, I think they think they're losing their youth, or they a lot of times think it was a lot better than it was, or they may have had more back then, or less stress, or a better job. And then other people, I think, look back and go, man, was that me? I think it was a lot more stressful to a certain degree, my past, which now it seems a lot, it was more stressful, in the back, and now it's less stressful because I'm not allowing myself to put myself in positions, basically financially more than anything, to destroy me. I don't want to go to bed or wake up always thinking of bills, what I don't have, and all these different things. So I think that is one, even car payments. When I get a car, I'm not going to have a massive car payment. I don't care if I get a used car. I like to have a decent car. So I even did that with my last car. I wanted a convertible, and I got a used convertible Mercedes, relatively really cheap, with a cheap payment. And then I says, I don't care if the car's already 10, 12 years old. It was mint. It only had 30,000 miles. If I went to buy that car new, it was 85 to 100, or it was $100,000. The sticker price on my car was like 66,000, and I got it for like 12.5. So, that is insane. But that's a different mindset now. Me saying, I don't need to have a new car. I don't have to have the stress of a huge payment again, or all these things. That doesn't mean I'm cheap. If you want to call me cheap. But again, I'm very aware of all my actions, because I know what's going to be down the road. And it's not worth the payoff. At least for me, it isn't. And I do that with clothing too. I talk about this, not sure if you heard me before. Clothing, jewelry, maybe jewelry's, you might be able to make some money, but clothing, horrible investment. Find clothes that are on sale, or go consignment shopping, secondhand shopping. That doesn't mean your clothes have to be used. You can just find them discounted, or go to stores where you can find great clothes on sale. Because I promise you, it's clothing. When you go to your closet, okay, that's where a lot of your money is for a lot of people. And it is just dead inventory. And I don't mean that in a bad way. But you don't have to spend $200 a shirt when you could really spend $40. Or you don't have to spend $50 sometimes a shirt when you can spend $20, $25. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, that's not a great brand, or this or that. Believe me, if you take some time out, you can start online, or taking some time out on foot and checking things out. Now, I understand a lot of us like certain things like Nike gym shoes. I'm not going to be cheap regarding that. I get it. Certain things you're not going to want to be cheap on, 100%. But if you look at your closet, go in there and start pricing it. I don't know what type of wardrobe you have. If you include jewelry and everything else, you may have $5,000 in there, $10,000. You may have $20,000 or $30,000 just sitting in there dead. How much do you use it? Now, if you're a corporate guy and you have to have suits and all this, like I have a lot of, I stopped buying suits actually and just went all sport coats and was getting all these beautiful sport coats. I got a sport coat for like $70. That was $2,000 once. Not exaggerating. Brand new. And I would just go to all these different consignment stops. If you could check them out on YouTube, I put them all up there. But yeah, be aware. That's all I'm really trying to tell you. And be aware of the stress you're putting yourself under, because a lot of times the stress you're putting yourself under, you're funneling that energy and you're stressing out a lot of people around you. That could be the people you work with. That could be your family members, friends, colleagues, everybody. So I don't think a lot of us take that into consideration. I know a lot of times I didn't. Back to the mood. If I was in a bad mood, I expected, just leave me alone. No one talk to me, right? When I'm in a good mood, hey, everybody, let's go out. What are we doing? What are we going? Well, let's go have a fun time. That was kind of me, hot and cold with that. And I think a lot of men are like that. They don't want to acknowledge it. They want to be bothered when they feel like being bothered. And then when they don't, they kind of hide like a cat. Or they're miserable. Or they're not in the mood. Oh, Dad's not in a good mood. Or stay away from him today, or this or that. But before you know it, that's every day. Like, you got to be more aware that people are going to eventually start treating you the way you're treating them, right? If you start avoiding people, they're going to avoid you. I mean, that's just the way it is. If you're loving and giving, I think a lot of times, people that are loving and giving are going to be around you. And I get we all have bad days, but please be aware of your behavior. Be aware of your moods. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, if you like any of this crazy shit I'm talking about, I do have a Mastering Self-Confidence program out there if you want to check it out. You can see everything on my richcelenza.com page. I've been putting up a lot of workout videos lately on my YouTube channel. So I did just certain body parts I did so far. What did I post? Chest, shoulders, back, bodies, tries, legs, and swimming. I'm going to do a jumping one. I shot a jumping video yesterday at the gym. People are always asking me, how do I jump so high at my age? And I'm going to do a jumping routine there to show people. What else? I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. So you can check me out there. And thanks for listening. Leave a comment. I'm all over the place now. Even my podcast is being posted on all different websites, including I got it on LinkedIn and Facebook. So leave a comment, a like, a dislike, whatever. All right, take care. I wish you nothing but the best.